by putting out a quick apology. I'm a little bit under the weather today, and I may not be as sharp and maybe as excitable as I might usually be. But quite frankly, this is too important not to come in and talk about, to be honest. And I know a lot of people are very interested in this, and I think it's incredibly important information for every single person to hear. So, you know what? I'm going to soldier on, and I'm going to do my best to get through it. Everything I'm going to be talking to you about today when it comes to the future of real estate and where is it heading. Now, can I just start by it? Can you please let me know you can see me and you can hear me okay? And also, if you're joining me live, let me know. Just type in the word live. And if you're going to be joining me via replay, you're watching this later on, type in the word replay. Let me know kind of who's on board and what we're going to be talking about. As I know this is a topic which is very, very dear to people's hearts, right? And it certainly is for me. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. You know, often people ask me why I do what I do, right? And I see it in social media comments all the time. Well, if you've already built your wealth and financially free, why do you still do this, right? And so let me be very, very clear. This is a mission thing for me. This is not about, I handled the money stuff a fair while ago now. This is a mission thing for me. One of the things that I get very passionate about, if you've heard me speak at any point in time, is that, I truly do believe that freedom is our birthright. And I believe that it has been taken away from us and that there's been a systematic creep on our liberties, which has been happening over a long period of time. And I think that creep is going to be accelerating. And one of the next things which is in the radars or the crosshairs, so to speak, is actually home ownership. Now, in 10 years' time, in the next decade, the whole landscape is going to change, right? It's going to change. I believe that first home buyers are going to be something you pretty well see in a museum. I think that property investors are almost going to be a thing of the past. And I think that home ownership is going to plummet at quite a rate of knots, and that a lot of wealth is going to be passed on from generation to generation via that home ownership level. But for the average person trying to get into the marketplace, I don't think it's going to be happening, right? That's what I think. Now, let me just check in. I have an 11-year-old daughter, right? Her name is Annabelle, right? And I sit there and I think about it. Okay, well, when she's 20 years old, what is it going to be like for her to get into the property market? Does anyone else worry about this? Who worries about their kids or their kids' kids actually be able to have this thing called a home and actually be able to build wealth through property investing? Does anyone else worry about these things, or is this just kind of me thinking too far ahead? Like, let me know where you're at. I know another 11-year-old daughter. Yeah, like, what's it going to be like in the next 10 years? That's what I've been thinking about, right? Now, something which is really important to me is legacy. It's something really critical to me. And I think legacy comes in the form of two different ways. One is intergenerational wealth. I want, my daughter's going to be fine. I've been investing for her from where we go, and I've got a bunch I can pass down, right? But I think about her kids, and I think about their kids, and I think about everything moving forward. And so I truly do believe that, creating intergenerational wealth so that generations from the future can benefit from what I'm doing now. But I also believe in impact. I believe in helping to give back to the planet and leave the planet in a bit of a better way. And one of the ways I do this is through this type of work and this type of education and stuff that I do, and in conservation work and a whole lot of different areas. And so, look, I truly do believe that every single person should build wealth, handle home base, expand your own wealth, make as much money as you possibly can, and then find something bigger than yourself to be able to give it away to. Right now, let's just come back to this home ownership thing for a moment. I want to talk to you about some of the big rocks which are happening right now, some of the big things which are going on in the marketplace, why this has been triggered for me even more so than it was before. Right now, the truth of the matter is that affordability is fading in a big, big way, right? In a big, big way. We saw this latest boom in the property market where property prices went up. I get a feeling that I'm kind of in this room and it's a little bit dark. I almost feel like I need to get a tin hat out and put it on, and I'm having one of these kind of live streams today. Like, affordability is getting out of the reach for a lot of people. Lending wise now, there's a massive deposit gap. So basically on average for right now, for the average person to save up a 20% deposit, it takes somewhere between 10 to 12 years to save up a 20% deposit now. Now, what if someone was just starting now, as we've seen the rental squeeze go up and the cost of living go up, wage growth hasn't followed along the way. This ability to be able to actually save a deposit is going to go down the drain. And we've got this massive affordability crisis, which is happening right now. And, the media and the banks have been talking about property prices plummeting and things like that. What a load of absolute hogwash. We've seen a drop of maybe 9% in Sydney was probably the biggest drop in the entire country. And property economists are predicting a 4 to 8% growth over this next kind of 12 months. So those of you that are sitting on the sideline think we're going to see this big washout in the marketplace, the whole Australia is going to go plummet by 20, 30%. Like, you're going to be waiting for a long time, right? Now, not to say that some areas won't have some bigger drops, especially as we start to see the fixed rate interest turn into variable. Those who fixed a number of years ago turn into variable. There's going to be some kind of shocks to the system with some people there. But quite frankly, a lot of those people were only able to afford to get into real estate because the government was throwing so much money at them, like with the grants, and interest rates were at record lows, right? Which isn't normal, right? We're actually in a more normal interest rate cycle right now. 2%, 2.5% is not normal, okay? So we've just come back to a space of normality now, and we really need to understand that. So while we've got this massive affordability crisis, the supply chain due to the COVID nonsense has been massively disrupted. When a supply chain is disrupted, meaning, and when we're talking about the supply chain of skilled labor, but we're also talking about the supply chain of materials. Because of the lack of building materials, the actual ability to be able to put together to build a piece of real estate. So lack of supply, prices go up. Because the cost of materials go up, it physically costs more to manufacture a piece of real estate and put a piece of a property on a piece of dirt. And obviously those costs need to be passed on. And so we've got the supply chain disruption as well. We're also in this massive rental squeeze right now, where we've seen rents pop up anywhere from kind of 10 to 30 odd percent in a lot of markets. Now, what that is creating is that for the average person, the average renter who thinks they want to get into a home, well, their ability to be able to go and save is massively limited now because they're spending so much on their rentals. And so that's fading as well. And then we've got the Australian government has come out with the Big Australia policy. Now, what they're talking about is opening up the floodgates in terms of immigration. And they're predicting that population is going to rise to 39.2 million people by 2060, and an annual migration of people coming in of around 235,000 for 2022, 2023. This is when we are already sitting in this massive undersupply of real estate at this point in time, which is still constrained, and with a government which seems to be completely inept to be able to create any more a supply in the market. But I'm going to talk about that soon, because their desire to create a lot of supply, quite frankly, isn't really there, right? I'm going to talk about why that is soon. And so what's happening is that we're going to be coming into this massive supply shock, right? At this point in time, we have a big shortfall already. Home building approvals have trended down 29% since 2016. And we're predicting that we're going to have 163,000 property shortfall per annum from 2025 to 32, right, to 2032. So we're going to have this massive shortfall of real estate that's able to be created. And when we have this experience of the supply being limited, plus the demand still in the marketplace because of the Big Australia, the reality of the matter is it's going to force prices back up. Now, at the end of today's live, I'm going to talk about what my predictions are over the next couple of years and where I see interest rates going and where I think the market is going to be moving over the next couple of years. So make sure you hang tight for that, because that's going to be a really, really important thing to talk about. But as I said, the reality of the matter is that the government seems to be inept at releasing land or creating supply in the market. And there's many reasons for this. The world of property is one of the biggest revenue raisers for the government. So stamp duties and different things like that. And the level of tape that has to be cut through for a developer to put a piece of property on a piece of dirt is absolutely crazy. And so they're coming out with all these schemes, which quite frankly is making it leave some breadcrumbs. And this is really important to listen to. As you think about some of these schemes that they're coming out with, I want you to read between the lines and actually start to think about, okay, well, what is really going on behind the scenes here? Because we have to do this, okay? Because this isn't being done in our favor. Now, one of these schemes which is coming out is called the shared equity scheme. And so what that means is the government effectively is putting in the deposit for a property, right? So people can come up with 2% or as low as 2% deposit, and then the government will put in 30 to 40% of the deposit themselves. Now, people might automatically go, well, that sounds great. That's helping first home buyers get into the market. And the reality is it is. That's cool. That's fantastic. However, what it also means is that the government actually owns 30 to 40% of your property. So this is where we're starting to see the centralization of totally. This is what is really going on is the direction from WF and World Bank. 100%. I'm coming to that wholeheartedly, right? I've got a fair bit I've got to say about that. And I've got a fair bit I've got to say about that, no doubt about it. So I'm coming to that. So this shared equity scheme basically is going to mean as that government is going to actually start to take ownership over people's property. Now, people have an opportunity to be able to pay the government out. However, given the cost of living, which is rising, and the cost of housing, which is going to be going up, I think people are going to be that take advantage of the scheme. A lot of them are going to be stuck in a situation where they are unable to pay out the government. The government is going to start to own their homes. So just keep that in mind to begin with. Now, another genius scheme that the government has come up with, and this isn't to help anyone, this is just to line their own pockets, is something called the windfall tax. This is another way that the government is making the ability to be able to supply more real estate to the marketplace much, much higher. Now, they're doing this in Victoria. It's called the windfall tax in Victoria. Victoria seems to be a bit of the testing ground in Australia for any genius scheme the government comes up with to basically fuck with us. There's no other way to put it. And so the windfall tax in Victoria is this. For anyone who owns real estate for 2 hectares and above, so this doesn't affect your average mum and dad who own their own home, for example, right? Think about this from a property developer standpoint. So what the government is saying is that with this windfall tax, if the government comes along and rezones a bit of land, during that rezone process, if the value of that land, because of what the government has done in rezoning, has gone up, then the government takes a windfall tax, cop this, of 65%. So if you sit there and go, a developer who's bought this greenfield land out in the suburbs somewhere to be able to develop that in the future, knowing that the government is going to come along and rezone it and turn it into residential land, as soon as the government rezones that, then what's going to happen? The value of that land goes up. The government comes along and goes, well, hey, we did this, so you owe me 65% of that increase in value. 65%, and for value raises over $500,000, it's 50%, right? It is absolute and utter theft. So you think about the developer who wants to build land for people to actually have a home. The reality of the matter is that now that the value of the land has gone up, maybe they're not going to be able to afford to. Okay, it is an absolute and utter theft every single step of the way. Dirty dogs. I have no other way to put it, right? It's hideous, hideous. Now, there is this thing that someone's talking about the World Economic Forum before. And in this, the World Economic Forum came out and said, own nothing and be happy. That is where we are heading. Own nothing and be happy. And that is where they want us to head, right? Now, let's talk about this for a moment. I want you to be thinking about that 10 years from now. I pulled up a bit of an article. And now, this may take me a little bit to kind of go through, and I might just post a link to the article and talk about some of it, right? I pulled up this article, and this is what it says, right? Yeah, WF controls the RBA, controls it. Yeah. There's a lot to say about that. And this is what it says. The article name is called Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better. Now, as I'm reading this to you, you're going to say, oh, well, they made it sound all rosy and beautiful and lovely and rainbows and unicorns and skipping down the golden path. But if you read between the lines and you start thinking about from a control standpoint and where you potentially, the ability you have to be able to control your own destiny in the future and the level of security you have, you're going to see it's something very, very different. This is what it says. Welcome to 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you consider a product has now become a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, all these things became free, so it ended up not making sense for us to own very much. First, communication became digitized and free to everyone. Then when clean energy became free, things started to move quickly. Transportation dropped dramatically in price. It made no sense for us to own any cars anymore because we could call a driverless vehicle or flying car for longer journeys within minutes. We started transporting ourselves in a much more organized, coordinated way where public transport became easier, quicker, and more convenient than the car. Now I can hardly believe that we accepted congestion and traffic jams, not to mention the air pollution and combustion engines. What were we thinking? Now it goes on to talk about sometimes you use my bike and blah, 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 blah. In our city, we don't pay any rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we do not need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I'm not here. Once in a while, I'll choose to cook for myself. It is easy. The necessary kitchen equipment is delivered to my door within minutes. Transport became free. Why keep a pasta maker and a crate cooker crammed into our cupboards when we just order for what we need? This also made the breakthrough of the circular economy of products that turns into services. Now, it went on. I'm going to post a link. I'm not going to keep reading through it. It goes on to say, when AI and robots took over so much of our work, we suddenly had time to eat well, sleep well, and spend time with other people. The concept of rush hour. I don't really know if I would call it work anymore. It's more like thinking time, creation time, developing time. Now, and then it goes, my biggest concern is all the people who do not live in our city. Those we lost on the way. Those who decided it all became too much. All this technology felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over big parts of our jobs. Those who got upset with the political system and turned against it, they live different kind of lives outside of the city. Some have formed little self-supplying communities. Others just stay in empty and abandoned houses in the small 19th century villages. Now, once in a while, I get annoyed about the fact I have no real privacy. Nowhere I can go and cannot be registered. I know that somewhere everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded. I just hope that nobody will use it against me. Now, I don't know about you, but how did you feel about that to begin with? Like, as you read between the lines and that, how do you actually feel about that? Quite frankly, it sounded rosy, but it scares the living shit out of me is what it does. Now, I'll get the link posted in the comments after this. But there is a wealth divide which is happening at this point in time. And property ownership is going to predict wealth in the future. You've got to be asking the question of who is going to own the keys in the future. Now, in 10 years' time, there's going to be a smaller portion of homeowners, right? There is going to be a smaller portion of owners who have an investment property. And then the biggest portion of real estate is going to start to move more and more towards funds like BlackRock and Lend-Lease and all that type of stuff. Government and institution ownership. That's where a big part of the future is heading towards. So you've got to start looking at the breadcrumbs in the market. Like, what are the breadcrumbs which are being left in front of us right now to be able to, that are showing us the way of the future? One of the biggest trends which is happening right now is the build to rent schemes. So this is where companies and funds will come in, and they're not going to build to sell anymore. They're going to build to rent. So they're going to build a big complex of units, was going to be primarily is what it's going to be. And they're going to hold on to those to rent them out to other people. Now, this is touted as a solution to social housing. But what it's also going to create in a lot of areas is a bit of a squalor in some areas, not all areas, but that's what we'll create in some areas. But it is what is being set up to house future generations and even generations right now. Now in Australia, we've been a little bit spoiled, thinking we've got this idea of this great Australian dream and home ownership. Now, that is just some legacy thinking that's happening right now. The reality of the matter is that there's many other countries at this point who are born into a lifetime of renting. And I believe that's exactly what's going to be happening in Australia, unless you choose to do something about it for your situation and also your kids and future generations. Like companies like BlackRock have set out that they want to be America's landlord. Guess what? That's happening in Australia as well. BlackRock are in Australia doing build to rent. Lend-Lease, Mirvac, big institutions are coming to buy and build real estate, not to sell to people who want to have a home, but to rent out. And this is going to be the way of the future to a lot of people. Okay, they're going to be actually renting for a lifetime. We're also seeing another breadcrumb is how tenancy agreements are changing. Right, rentals and tenancies are now being put in the favor of tenants. And what I mean by that is that, for example, things like longer leases. Now, for right now, if you go and get a property to rent out, a typical lease time frame is 6 months, 1 year, maybe 2 years. That's typical. What we're starting to see is that we're being moved towards longer leases of 5, 10, 15, 20-year leases. Okay, that's what's starting to happen. Again, it's happening faster in Melbourne than it is than anywhere else. What has also happened in Queensland, pets is basically it has been created that pets are a right of tenants, and that landlords have to actually have a good justifiable reason that fits into one of maybe 5 different categories to say no to a pet. But it is presumed that people can have pets in a rental property right now. Now, for those of us landlords who don't necessarily want pets in a home, like the reality is that right to say that based on these tenancy agreements is going away. We're also seeing things like simple things like you don't have to ask for permission to be able to kind of put a nail in the wall to hang pictures. So the rentals, and it's harder to kick tenants out. So the rentals are moving in favor of tenants, and it's setting people up to actually turn a property into a home. Now, there's a good and a bad side of this. Good side of this is that you have longer term tenants and that you don't have to worry about vacancies. Bad side of it is that you don't have as much control and choice as what you originally had. Okay, and so it's going to be a bit of a weighing game that you're going to be looking at. One of the other big breadcrumbs which is happening is lending. Serviceability is tightened up like crazy. Anyone that was investing 15 years ago, it was such a fun time to invest in real estate because it was like the Wild West of lending. The days of buying 5, 7, 10 properties are behind us for most people. Literally behind us for most people. Right now, you're thinking that you're going to get maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 investment properties is what the norm is going to be. And if you're getting 3, then you're doing really well. Now, there are ways around this if you have a more tiered and layered strategy and you're far more strategic in your approach. And I teach a lot of my students and clients how to do this. But for most people who are just coming in, the mum and dad who's going to buy their own home and think they're going to invest in real estate, most are only going to get one good quality property, and that's about it because they're going to run out of servicing. Lending right now, especially as interest rates have started to pop up, is taking 50%, 40 to 50% of people's weekly income is going towards just paying a mortgage, right? So the percentage of income needed to service mortgage repayments is anywhere from 40 to 51%. So it really has gone up quite dramatically. And it's another thing to think about. The market is not being set up in a way to support people, to the everyday person to go and buy 3, 4, 5 pieces of real estate, for example, to kind of create financial security and sovereignty for their own lives. And so that's why you've got to be far more strategic around what you're doing. And so the breadcrumbs are there. It's already sitting there. All you have to do is start pay attention and see where all these breadcrumbs are starting to go. Now, we can then zoom out and start to see some of the bigger picture stuff. And this is the important stuff, which is going to impact everyone's life, no matter what. The world in which we're living in right now in the next decade is going to be completely different, okay? And you've got to choose how you're going to turn up in that new world in 10 years. And, the World Economic Forum is talking about the Great Reset because they're talking about how we've been doing life so far hasn't been working. And, HEMS has just increased across the board to lower capacity again. Yeah. And so the reality of the matter is that this great reset, the new world order type of thing is what they're talking about, is really about the centralization of governance. That's what it is. Governance is really important. It's not just government, it's governance. It's the governments of people under one kind of world order, so to speak, one theme, one way, so that it's supposed to be like equality for all. Now, that all sounds, and when they talk about this, they use all these rosy words and all these beautiful words and all these flowery words. But again, if you read between the lines, you'll see what it really is all about is control. So there's going to be a centralization of basically all of life. Now, this is going to be starting to happen in a few different ways. And I want to talk to you about some of the bigger trends which are going on and what it means. Now, one of the big things which is coming along the way at the moment is all about the smart cities. So AI is coming, and it's coming very fast. Anyone that's been using the Chat GPT and some of the AI functions which are coming out right now, your mind is probably blown already around some of the stuff which is happening. And so that AI is then being used in amongst this smart city situation where they're setting people up to be able to live in effectively these smart cities. Now, again, it sounds great, but in these smart cities, everything is monitored. Everything is registered. Every move you make, every dollar you spend, every place that you go, everything is going to be monitored along the way, and you're not going to be able to escape anything. In and amongst that, we're going to have the central bank digital currency. So in these smart cities, as you're kind of going to be, as they're kind of setting them up, it's going to be touted among, it's more efficient climate change and this and you're going to be able to access everything, and you don't need to own this, and you don't need to worry about this, and we've got this, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of Matrix type of stuff, right? Where they decided that where people were happiest was in this, what's the right word? Where people were happiest was in this certain part of the world, and people just in the space of complacency, so to speak. And when people in a space of complacency, then they're willing to accept more creeps on their liberties and what is kind of going on. Now, social credit system deployed with integrated AI that you cannot escape. I 100% agree with that. So everything, these smart cities, everything you do, everything you think about, every move you make, every location you go, every dollar you spend, everything is going to be recorded. It's all going to be tracked. And I was listening to one of my buddies sent this over to me, something today about the future and how brain impulses are even going to be measured as well. And so these smart cities, they may sound pretty, but the reality of the matter is that the creep on our liberties is going to be extreme to a next level, right? Now, I was talking before about this, and so the central bank digital currency is another part of this. So the central bank digital currency in Australia is going to be here in the next 1 to 2 odd years. I want you to think about that and imagine that as you have a central bank digital currency. What it means, because they're using blockchain technology, is that, again, every dollar you spend, like physical cash is being removed from the system. This started accelerating during the COVID situation we've just been through. And by the way, a lot of this just accelerated through due to the COVID situation we've just been through, right? And so what we're going to start to see is this central bank digital currency. And what that means is the government can tax you when they want, they can fine you when they want, they know where you're spending, they know what you're doing, and it's all going to be monitored and tracked within an inch of your life, right? And that's where we're kind of moving in this space. This is why your ability to be able to set up sovereignty, and why I'm such a believer in decentralization and cryptocurrencies for that reason. I think it's going to be a big thing for the future. I 100% agree with this. Sounds like modern slavery, and that's what it is. Yeah, so Resilient Cities program was funded by the Rockefeller family in Melbourne. Is one of the test locations which Dan Andrews put in power several years ago to roll out this program in Victoria, right? And so alongside the central bank digital currency, we're also seeing this social credit scoring system which is going to be coming into play as well. Now, some of you sitting there going, Todd, you've gone a little bit far. You've got a bit of a tinfoil hat on. You're sitting there in the dark and there's some shadows going on, and you should have some tinfoil hat on at the moment. But I really want you to kind of let go of any preconceptions you have and just take this in. Whether you believe it or not, it's okay, right? But just open yourself up to hear some other perspectives in the marketplace around what is going on, and then decide what you want to do with it afterwards, right? Now, in China, there's a social credit scoring system where good citizens get access to more things, they get cheaper things, they can go places. Bad citizens, so to speak, can't. And this is what's coming was becoming globally as well. what we've started to see during COVID once again is that we had to download apps on our phones in order to be able to access premises and be able to do different things. And if we're a good boy and girl, we got vaccinated, then we can access things and we can't access things, right? We can go places or we can't go places, right? And so that was some of the stuff which is going on, and where that was moving towards is a digital ID. Now, that's where we're going to be heading next. We've already seen things like directors needing a digital ID, which is touted under so people don't close down companies and do, Phoenix companies, for example. But it's basically illegal, right? The director's ID is illegal. When people are signing that, they are effectively handing over permission for the government to go and breach your rights of privacy. It's actually illegal. And yet people just kind of follow it. And again, if you have, it's not your fault. We just don't know this. We don't understand it is. But people just kind of follow it because, the government said I need to do this. Well, no, you don't. You need to get yourself educated. You need to understand what your actual rights are and what's actually going on behind the scenes. So this social credit scoring system is going to be coming in the future. And ultimately, we're going to be moving towards microchipping, right? That's what's going to be happening. And it's going to be, again, convenience, like, just wave your hand and you pay for this and wave your hand and access this and no more wallets, no more this and no more that. And that's something which is kind of coming as well. And we need to be very, very aware of this. Another one is climate change. I think we're done very soon. I'm going to talk to you about what I see happening over the next few years and what you really need to do about it. Now, climate change may not be everything that it seems. Okay. So do I fully believe that we need to be better at looking after our planet? 100%. It's a big part of why I do what I do and, do conservation work and different things that I do, right? I'm a big believer in it. My concern is how it's going to be used against us. So in Europe right now, this is already happening. And I think this is potentially going to happen in Australia and different parts of the world as well. Now, the reality is climate change is making big noise at the moment and potentially for rightful reasons. What I'm concerned about what happening is happening, and this is happening in Europe right now. My buddy Phil was telling me about this. It's already happening in Germany. Is that as climate change becomes more and more mainstream, what is potentially going to happen is that in old houses that were not set up to be energy efficient. Now, in 2003, there was a energy efficiency score. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Energy efficiency score, which was introduced into Australian real estate. Now, that energy efficiency score gave a rating, like is it a 5 energy efficiency or 3 or 9 or 10 being the highest. Now, here's what I think is going to happen. In the future, it's going to be mandated that all properties need to have a certain energy efficiency score, right? It's going to be mandated for that to happen. Now, older properties that were not set up for energy efficiency are going to be forced to go and change their entire household to be energy efficient. And I can tell you right now, that's going to cost a whole shitload of money. And a lot of people, quite frankly, are not going to be able to afford it. And guess what? When they can't afford it, then they're going to be punished, they're going to be penalized, and potentially their house is going to be taken away from them. Now, this is happening in Europe already, right? Phil was talking to me about this is happening in Germany, literally at this point in time, because he's German, his parents still live over there. And these are some of the things which is going on. And so some of these different elements are going to be used to put pressure on people financially so that they actually can't afford to own the homes. As I was reading that little passage before around 2030, I own nothing and I'm happy. Something else I came across is really interesting. So there's something called an Agenda 750, which is happening in the US. And basically what it's talking about is that there's a centralization of property. What it's talking about is nationalizing human settlement. So in these major CBD areas, which are going to become the smart cities, people are going to be living in same type of property and same type of location. Cars are going to become a thing of the past. Like the World Economic Forum has already called for end to car ownership, right? That's already in the cards already. It's happening as we speak, right? And they're talking about phasing out, the Agenda 750, phasing out private property. And anyone that owns or wants to live outside of these centralized cities, these nationalized human settlements is what it's talking about. They're going to be taxed at such great rates to be able to fund the inner cities that it's not going to be viable for them to continue living out where they are. And they're going to be forced to kind of sell, government take back ownership, and then we're in these kind of smart cities, so to speak, or these centralized settlements, which is where potentially things are going to be happening in the future. So all of this being said, what you've really got to start asking a question around is what are you really going to do about it, right? That's what you've got to be asking the question around. Now, I may be wrong on all of this. But what if I'm not? That's the question you've really got to be starting to think about. What do you need to do about it is that this next 10 years in home ownership and property ownership, I think is essential. I think you should be doing everything you possibly can to accumulate real estate in this marketplace, because in 10, 15 years, I don't think you're going to be able to. I don't think you're going to be able to afford to. I don't think it's going to be able to set up for you, allow you to. So if you are interested at all in actually building this wealth and being on the right side of this kind of wealth divide and have financial sovereignty for yourself, I truly do believe home ownership is going to be a core part of that, and property ownership is going to be a core part of that. And it's going to create a big part of deciding who's going to be on the wealth divide and who's not. Now, and then your ability to be able to pass that down from generation to generation as well. Okay. Now, what if I'm wrong and you've chosen to kind of get involved in investing anyway and kind of build your wealth and create your financial security and financial freedom? What could possibly go wrong by taking that type of action anyway? So the answer is really, why wouldn't you in any case, right? That's what you really want to be thinking about. Now, here's what I think is going to be happening over the next few years in the Australian marketplace. And this will be similar to other countries as well. So I think interest rates are going to continue to rise just a little, right? I think we're going to see a few new pop-ups in the marketplace. I think we're going to peak at the end of the year. And I think we're potentially even going to see a drop in interest rates by the end of this year. Now, what we'll also see is that inflation is going to peak and then it's going to begin to soften as well. Now, what this is going to mean is that right now, with this increasing in the interest rates and inflation figures, is creating a lot of fear in the marketplace and is driving people out of the property market at this point in time, which is why we're seeing a softening in property prices in a bunch of locations. Having said that, first quarter figures for auction clearance rates were actually at 80% this year, right? Already this first kind of month. And so that's some of the stuff which is happening at this point in time. And so we've got to be careful not to just listen to the media. As we start to see interest rates start to drop and inflation figures drop and the media kind of calm down and everyone realize that everything's okay, I think a greater level of interest is going to pop back into the property market. And people who have been running for the hills and hiding under the proverbial doona, hoping that everything's going to go away, is going to peek their head out and look around and go, oh, the world hasn't collapsed. It hasn't fallen in on itself just yet anyway. Alongside this is going to be happening, we're going to start to see immigration policies kick in. And so this big Australia policy of 235,000 people moving to Australia in 22 to 23, we're going to see more and more people start to flow into the marketplace. We're still going to see a lot of media and misinformation coming through, because that's always going to be happening. But I think the tone will change as we start to see interest rates drop a little bit. While we have this, understand that currently we have a booming national economy, right? So unemployment rate is very, very low. GDP is picking up. Like, we have a booming national economy, okay? And so I expect us to start to see a price recovery in real estate, if not this year, kick into gear next year, and especially the year after, as we see the supply squeeze kick into another notch in terms of the lack of supply, plus the overwhelming demand that's going to be coming from the market. And we're also going to see rents continue to rise, which is going to draw back in the interest of a lot of investors in the market. So here's my perspective. I think that this next 12 months represents a really nice opportunity in the marketplace. I just picked up another property myself, got it for a really, really solid deal. And while there's a bit of interest that's dropped out of the market, what it's mean is that there's some deals that can be done in this kind of marketplace. And so if you have capacity to be able to kind of move into the market and you have a bit of a long-term perspective and you're happy to ride a little bit of up and down, now is the time you should be looking at this, because the last thing you want to do is miss out on this kind of opportunity in this space right now. And in 2 years' time, we start to see the market pick up again and start to move to another level. And we see property prices go through the roof, and you're left trying to chase an uphill marketplace. That's what I think is going to be happening over this next kind of 1 to 2 odd year period. And you need to pay attention. You have to make a decision around what you do in this type of things. And so this is where it really comes down to. What are you going to do? Right? What are you going to do from this point on? Now, you can just sit on the sidelines and wait, and quite frankly, you're just going to be left behind, and that's what's going to happen. And you can just hope that everything is going to work out. And, in 10 years' time, maybe you don't own anything and you're happy about it. Good for you. To me, that is a very scary situation, right? To me, you want to have control over your future, control over your destiny, control over how you and your family choose to live in this world and experience this thing called life, and not have every single move that you have being dictated by the government and being dictated by AI and dictated by all the other things I've been talking about so far today. Now, again, what if I'm wrong? Great. Worst case is that you're in a far better financial position when you started right now. But if I'm right, then that's a scary situation if you're not going to be doing anything about it. Now, I understand that it can be lonely out there talking about this type of stuff. There's not too many people like that you can actually communicate with this in this type of level to actually have a straight up and down conversation around what's going on in the marketplace and how you're going to do about it and talking about these things, right? You certainly can't go talk to your bank. You can't go talk to your accountants. You can't go talk to financial planners. You can't talk to most people, right? But this idea and understanding of creating financial sovereignty in your life is absolutely everything. And frankly, the noose is tightening a little bit for a lot of people, and now's the time to be starting to be doing something about it. So, what to do from here? If you are wanting some help along the way, if you want to chat to someone who actually gets it and is on the same page as you, and if you resonate with any of the stuff that I'm talking about, and you want to kind of get a bit of understanding of what the next steps might be for your situation in your market, then I really want to invite you to book in a time with Baden, one of my team. On the call, it's absolutely free. It's not going to cost you anything. He's going to take a close look at your situation, understand where the opportunity is, understand where the potential risks are and what's going on, and then be able to point you in the right direction for what you can do next to start moving yourself towards that financial freedom and sovereignty that you want to be able to create. Now, I run a series of different programs. Some are for people that need to handle their personal financial foundation, because why would you be given more money to manage if you can't manage what you've already got? So you always want to set this strong foundation. And then another program that teach people to start investing and actually get your money out there working hard for you, so you don't wind up spending your entire life working hard for money. And then the third tier is people that have a financial base already, but they want to put the accelerator down and they want hands-on help to be able to grow. So no matter where you're starting in right now, we can definitely help you take that next steps. And if you want some team and some people in the community who speak the same language and talk the same thing, then I really encourage you to book in that time. And worst case, you book in that free time. You're going to see it in the comments section in here, in the description. Worst case, you book in that free session. You're going to come out with a little bit more understanding and direction around what you need to go and do next, right? So I hope that's been useful. I would love to hear your comments, by the way. I would love to hear what resonated. If you can pop in the comments, please, what resonated for you around that, and any ideas or any thoughts that you had. I would absolutely love to hear how everyone feels about all this, because I think this is a massive, massive thing, and we need to take notice of it. We need to start taking notice of it now. So I would love to hear how everyone else found it, and to book in a time. Absolutely book in a time. One of the things I'm most excited about is that as part of our programs, I'm putting on a live event in 10th to 12th of March on the Gold Coast. And first time in like 4 years because of the COVID bullshit, right? And so we're bringing like 100 investors together in a room where we can just jam on wealth, jam on freedom, jam on sovereignty, bring in other cool speakers around the place as well to be able to kind of talk to people about their strategies and how they build wealth. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. And inevitably have some of these conversations as well, because frankly, I can't help myself. It's just part of it and part of me. So, team, hope you guys are amazing. My voice is about to give out. I'm just amazed. I got through, a solid 45 minutes of conversation with you around this. So I appreciate you guys all sticking in there with me. And sorry for the congestion and things like that. It was too important for me to not do that, quite frankly. Yeah, what's most scary about everything you said? Okay, so here's the. Make sure you get the link. Make sure you get the link. But this is the key point. What's most scary about everything you said is how realistic it is and how it feels like we're heading that direction. And the reason is we are, right? We're heading in that direction. That's exactly what's going on. The breadcrumbs are clearly pointing us there. Like the government is telling us exactly where we're going. The World Economic Forum is telling us exactly where we're going. Right. Yeah. So I appreciate you of building your second and third income streams because you need to, right? AI is going to replace so many people's jobs. Like no one should be thinking they're safe at this point in time. You've got to be thinking about the future and the risks are going to be creative, right? You've got to start thinking about this because we're probably going to start to move towards a universal basic income, which sounds like hell to me, right? Because again, it's just another control mechanism. Think about the centralization of life. You don't own a property. There's universal basic income. You don't own anything, so you just rent everything. It's central bank digital currency, so all your financial situations controlled. You don't own a car, so you can't really get around. Just think about what's happening. Like it sounds like absolute hell to me. Like you're going to be controlled every single step that you take. So yeah, X miner AI is already having a mining. It's happening everywhere. Like everyone's got to sit up and take notice of what's going on right now. You can't sit in a place of complacency because you're going to get bloody hit by a truck. You're going to get run over, and you're not going to know what's hit you. And then all of a sudden, you're going to turn around and be stuffed financially and not have anywhere to go apart from into the arms of the government, who's going to take care of you. Like just absolute bullshit. Sounds like hell to me. Right, everyone needs to be taking notice of this right now and doing something about it. Like waiting is stupid. There's no two ways about it. Waiting is stupid. You've got to be doing something at this point in time. Anyway, team, I'll stop ranting and I'll leave it there. I'm super curious around everyone. So whether you're watching this live or replay, I'm really, really curious. Make sure you go book in a time with Baden and just have that initial conversation, right? I'd love to be able to help you out. Worst case, we put you in the right way, in the right direction. Yeah, I believe the same. The government take care of us. Haha. Yeah, that'd be the day. 100%. All right, Dean. Yeah, my voice is really going. Thanks so much, everyone. I look forward to chatting to you soon. And let me know how you found this. I'd love to know your thoughts. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.